So following one of our previous uploads, several of you guys were interested in the InRunning trading tool that I was using on screen. Now it's a pretty big ask to show you around everything it can do because it can be used in so many different ways. However, not wanting to disappoint you guys, I've put together this full user video guide. So this upload shows you everything it can do from start to finish, step by step, without any waffle, getting straight to the point. Now if you're looking for a specific feature that you need help with, check the description below because we're going to add in timestamps to the relevant areas. There's also a link to the tool itself. Now putting together this user guide has taken a little while, so please, if it helps you out, take a second to return the favour and tap the like button down below. So what is the InRunning trading tool? Well, it's a software tool that uses past InRunning data to highlight patterns and trends that are likely to repeat themselves in the future, making selection process for future trades more efficient and a hell of a lot faster. So the key features to this tool are the fact that it shows you in-play prices, both high and low, historically for specific runners. It shows you the Betfair starting price, the industry starting price. You can then export that data, you can manipulate it, you can put filters on, see different results within the tool. There's separate tabs to highlight the day's Dobbs, back to lay selections, and you can even use their calculator to work out the potential profit or loss on an in-play trade depending on the specific prices. And on top of that, if it wasn't enough, there's a deeper race card view which shows you all the standard information and the horse's historical behaviour. So I probably don't need to spell it out more than that, but it's particularly useful if you're interested in dobbing or back into lay or trading prices in running on the horses. Now for anybody that doesn't know what dobbing means, it basically means a double or bust trade or bet, which is going to require a horse's price to either half in running, or if it doesn't happen you go bust. So you double your stake or you go bust. It's basically a 50-50 trade. You just need to make sure that your strike rate is above 50%, inclusive of commission, and you're on to a winner. Okay, so once you're initially logged in, you're presented with this screen here. There's several tabs along the top. Again, I'm going to link them individually and put a timestamp in the description below, going through them one by one, left to right, top to bottom, every single aspect. So the first one is races on the menu, which is the Racecard tab, which is the one we can see on screen now. So you can see all of today's races here highlighted in blue. I'll go over it with my cursor, it goes white, and into tomorrow also. So that's pretty good to start with. We're not just restricted to today's selections. But if I select, these buttons at the top here first, very quickly. Expand obviously expands every single race in one go. Collapse collapses them down on screen. It's currently in the collapsed view. Calculator we'll go into individually in the settings. Export all, very self-explanatory, exports all the data for all the races into an Excel file, so you can then manipulate it, do whatever you want there if you so wish. Probably more helpful if you're into automation. And export cell, which is export selected once, so you basically select the races individually and you can export the data individually like that. So that would be the selection for that race. So if we skim down and find a slightly more interesting race, say the 340 at Bath here, you can see this gives us our initial race card view. So left to right, very simple, horse's name, forecast price, days since the horse last run, occasionally that's helpful, you can see when there's gambles in the market, the draw of the horse within this particular race, the official rating of the horse's jockey, the amount of times it's won and the amount of times that it is raced. You can see it's not doing so well here. This horse hasn't won at all out of 8 races. The percentage win is therefore 0. You can see below that it's slightly different because we've had 3 wins out of 113 runs. Average racing style is rated 1 to 4, whether it's a front running horse or a held up horse. 4 being the slowest, 4 being held up comes from the rear. Front runner meaning the horse leads the race. The average tick drop from the Betfair starting price. Tick meaning the increment, Betfair increments on either the ladder or the website if you're using the website. So 4.0 to 4.1 is 1 tick. So the average T drop is the average tick drop for this horse within a race from the BSP, the Betfair starting price. Short in running is to do with the settings that we'll go through in a separate section, but you basically set a value and it tells you whether it achieves that. Green percentage is the dobbing percentage. Again, gold, green, you can change the settings in the settings tab, which we'll go through shortly. The dob ratio of this particular horse over the amount of runs that it has previously had. So out of 8 runs for this horse, it has dobbed double or bust 4 times, giving it a 50% dob ratio, meaning inclusive of commission, which you can also set in the settings, is a negative return of £2. Obviously 50-50 minus the commission leaves you slightly down. So that is representative for every single horse on this race card. Pretty nifty. So if you want to see the individual runs for each specific runner, you can do so by clicking the tab on the left here, and it shows every single run out of those 8 runs mentioned and what happened. So to breeze through this, because a lot of these are very self-explanatory: date, course, prize money, the class of the race, position, running style, etc, etc. All the usual things you'd see on a race card. And then this extra section down the end, which is more interesting to a lot of people who are looking to trade and dob in play. So we've got the in play low, assuming the horse lost the race. In this case, it was 160. The Betfair starting price was 183.52. Industry starting price was 101. Shock. And the place starting price there too. The place Betfair starting price too. Now the in play low BSP percentage, that's a mouthful, is the percentage at which this horse traded below its Betfair starting price in running. So you can see this went down to 87.19%, which means it didn't dob in this instance. That's why the block is white. If we look at the run below, you can see it went down to 37.5% of its initial Betfair starting price, which means it did dobbed. There's 4 of those, which add up to the total dob ratio at the top there. One of those is gold. So to highlight that, we'll go through the settings again in a little bit, because you can change these different percentages, but it basically traded shorter than its Betfair starting price by more than 75%, but not as far as 50%. So that is, in a nutshell, a single selection on the race card there. You can do this for every horse. You can see the crossed out lines, that's because the horse has been withdrawn from the race. But that is the race cards tab at the top. I think you'll see it's very useful, but it's now going to become more interesting when we look at the separate tabs with regard to back to lay to back, dobbing, and in short running. So moving swiftly on to the back to lay tab, you've got the same tabs along the top here, calculator, and you've got settings for this back to lay tab. So again, just like represented previously, but this time, instead of having every single race and every single runner, it's picked up all the runners that have been selected as a possible back to lay based on the settings and criteria that you've been set. So it's picked them out for you. You don't have to go through them one by one. So if we highlight, say, this one here, 20 past 2 at Yarmouth, we can see this horse historically is probably not the best example, but there's been, it's dobbed once out of 2, which gives it a 50% dob rate, minus 50p after commission, and you can see the prices at which it's traded low there. So that's probably not the best selection, so we can breeze over that one. We'll look at another one. Okay, you can see this one here is a lot better. It's dobbed 4 times out of 4 from its last 4 runs. You can see here the highest it traded at was 48.44% of its initial BSP. So this horse is consistently a selection for potentially backing at the start of the race and placing a lay at 50% or lower in running to have a higher strike rate than 50%, leaving you in profit. So that's what backing to lay is: backing at the start, cashing out in play, laying the bet off, sealing in that profit. Now if you go at the top here, there's got a nifty little calculator, and there's 3 different ways that you can calculate your back to lay trade depending on how you want to do it. So first of all, we can do it via price. So for example here, it's already got some default figures in for us. Entry price of 20, exit price of 10, that is 50% reduction in size. So a £10 stake would need to go for 20 ticks to give you 10 profit. Obviously we've got to take our commission out of that afterwards as well. Next you've got you can calculate it as a percentage. So we can say, look, let's make this nice and simple. Let's change that to 50. Let's change that to 50% and click off for that. So again, it's showing us exactly the same thing. Back at 20, lay at 10, 50% of that is obviously 20 ticks, and that's how you achieve that same profit. Next, we've got the settings tab, which just basically allows you to manipulate all of this data that's behind on the screen here. So we can say, look, the dob percent is 50%. run style, oh sorry, dob percent is 0.5, 50%. Run style, win percentage of, I don't know, 10%. Save the data, and you see it's selected out how many runners fitted that criteria based on those settings here. And if we click on one of those, you can see they've probably not got a lot of runs, a lot of these. But that's how the back to late tab works. Moving swiftly on to the later back tab, I'm not going to waste too much time on this because it's basically the same as what we've just talked about there with the back to late tab, but inverse, flipped around. So again, it's pulled out all of the possible later back selections today. You've got your settings that you can change there, and you've got the calculator just like the last time around. Once more, you can either expand or collapse all of this information and see what's going on for the day. So not a lot to say about that one. Dobbing tab. So the dobbing tab is a really useful element here. So this is probably the one that a lot of people are going to be interested in. Again, we've got expand, collapse, calculator, exactly the same previous, just allows you to simulate the trades before they happen to work out how much profit is available. But these are today's dobbers, if you like. We can see that, let's go to the second one here, it's got 5 runs. Of 5 runs, this selection has dobbed 4 times. Sometimes as low as 21, 16%, 23%. So that's, you know, that's all the way down the bottom end of the spectrum. It's a very strong dobber. It's been quite reliable, and that might be something that you want to then look at further on the race card, particularly at the start of the race, how the horse is behaving, what sort of price range it is to also to pick out another horse that is likely to dob. Now, these are, you can select it, sorry, I should have mentioned this right at the start as well. You can actually filter each of these columns by clicking on the top, and it'll either, you know, it'll do it one way or the other, ascending or descending. So if we say we want to see all the best dobs on this page, we want to go for the lowest price at the top first. You can see this one's quite reliable. It's had a lot of runs there as well, so that would be one certainly worth looking at later on today. So that is the dobbing tab. That is the one where most people are going to spend their time. You can change the settings, which we're going to go into last of all at the tab at the top here. But when you change the settings, you completely change the results that are then filtered and shown in front of you. So short in running is exactly the same format as, you know, the last 3 tabs, to be quite honest with you. It's just dependent on the settings that we're now going to go through with the settings tab at the top here on the header bar. Okay, so the settings tab is probably the most important one out of all of them, by far the most interesting. So let's go for it step by step. So settings up the top here, down on the left you can see edit settings. So calculation settings, now you've seen the gold and green figures throughout the various race cards there, but this is where you can set the percentages. By default, gold is at 75%, meaning that the price is reduced by 25% from its initial Betfair starting price. Green is at 50%, indicating that it has dobbed, double or bust, and we can change those figures, which I'll do now. So remember to put in decimal format each time. 0.8 gives us, the gold is now set to 80%. Once I hit this save button down the bottom here, we can set the green slightly lower. So if we set it to 0.33, that's 33%. So that's what's known as a TROB, which is rarely talked about, but it's basically triple or bust for your stake because it's trading at 33% or lower than its initial Betfair starting price. Below that, we've got the short in running figures. Now, this is interesting because you may want to find some runners that have traded low in running previously, possibly even put a lay bet in the market at a very low price, knowing they will trade low in running before the start of the race and set the persistence to keep, because they historically trade low in running but then don't go on to win. So that's what this is about with short in running. So you can set the short in running low figure to, say, we'll say 3.0 here, 3.0. And the short in running BSP. So that's basically saying, show us runners that have traded as low as 3.0 when they had a Betfair starting price of 6.0. Now we all know that's a dob, and how many times does the horse need to have done that in order for it to qualify? That's what you select here at form history. So we've got currently 30 runs. I think that's a little bit heavy. So if we change that to 15, and then of course we've got commission, because it's going to factor commission in for us. Now we all know that at the moment if you're on the basic rate with, say, Betfair, you can get 0.02. You can get 2% commission. So we'll add that. Then you tap save down the bottom there, and that has saved them settings for the other race cards. So let's have a quick look. If we go to the race card here, we'll expand a couple of these. You can see there's far less, but this one here is traded at 33% of its Betfair starting price. Therefore, it's gone green. Okay, so that's nice and simple. Back to the settings tab. The next column is equally interesting, but we've got run and display settings. So, you know, how many runs do we need for these to qualify? So the minimum runs is 0, maximum runs is 500. That's pretty broad, but if you want to refine it down, you're obviously going to make those numbers smaller. So we may say 200, for example. The minimum green percentage, which again is the percentage we just talked about on the side there. So we could set that to say 5. Maximum green percentage 100. That's very broad again, so it's going to give us lots of selections. Minimum gold, very much the same, so that's a 5, 100. The minimum dob percentage, so the amount that it has dobbed by in terms of a percentage figure. I think a lot of these are quite simple, but they're just basically what it's doing is it's allowing you to see things in a different format, different layout, so that you can look for specifically what you actually want in your selections here. Now the dob return, I mentioned that I believe previously. Let's quickly save these settings here. I believe I mentioned that on the race card earlier, but it shows you the amount of profit or loss that this horse would make to a level stake. So for example, this one here, break cover, would have you 960 in profit to a level stake, whereas this one here would be minus 2020. So again, it's just another way of highlighting and laying it out in a different format as to how successful these selections are. So to the right, we've got race display settings. We can display yesterday's data, today's data. That's obviously ticked. If we untick that, it will just show us tomorrow's. If we untick that, it won't show us anything. Handicaps, so you can filter out all the other different race types quite easily just by ticking that box. Minimum race furlongs, maximum race furlongs, again self-explanatory. Say for example you wanted races between 7 furlongs and a mile, so you'd put 7 in there because obviously there's 7 furlongs in 7 furlongs, and the maximum will be 12 because there's 12 furlongs in a mile. And again, we save the information, and that refines the data even further. So it gives us less and less selections the more we refine it through these settings. Okay, down the bottom, last one, race type. Now all we've got to do is click the little cross to get rid of some of these. If you don't want to see National Hunt flat races, we'll cross that one off. Okay, again, save the settings every single time and come back, and there's less and less selections each time. And of course, if you want to go back to reset all the defaults, because you've been playing around with it too much, you don't know what you've done exactly, you can do that there too. So that is the races tab, the back to lay tab, the lay to back, dobbing, short in running, and the settings tab for the InRunning trading tool. As I said right at the beginning there's 1,000,001 things that you can do with this. You can refine it and display things in so many different ways. It will help you find exactly what you're looking for in terms of horses and how they've traded in running, where the money has gone, because of course at the end of the day, where the money goes is the most important thing in a horse race, particularly when you're backing your selections. So just lastly, before you go, please remember to tap that like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and check out another video in the end screen here.